guest today is someone who routinely makes it to a variety of Forbes lists. Not just the Forbes rich list, she's also in the list of Forbes 100 most powerful women in the world. A lady who Forbes India columnist Subrata Bagchi calls the biotech queen of India. Kiran Mazumdar wanted to be a medical doctor but couldn't, as her father refused to pay the capitation fee demanded by the medical college as a matter of principle. Industry's gain, though, is not medicine's loss. Her company Biocon, the company that she founded and runs today, is a top 20 global biotechnology company and is leading the search for the world's first orally administered insulin. Now, if she is successful, it will mean no pain for a million of diabetics every day. Kiran, thank you so much for joining us. Kiran, I deliberately said you're leading the search, and I didn't use something dramatic as close to a breakthrough in finding an orally administered insulin, because we know how fraught with difficulty drug research can be. In fact, in January you suffered a setback, and when you were very close to coming to the market, and it's almost now 11 years, 10 years since you started working on this. Is the spirit as unwavering as it was then, or do you think this is a tough business?
Well, of course, you know, I think this is an endurance test, and I think you never give up. And I think I'm very confident that the drug definitely has a great promise.
Okay.
I think, you know, we've demonstrated efficacy. Actually, the drug did what it was supposed to do. It's just that the way the trial was designed, unfortunately, led to a very high placebo effect. And that's what clinical trials are all about. You know, they're not slam dunk. You learn a lot from these trials and you move on. So I think the next design of the clinical trial that we propose to pursue.
So you're not giving up, because Pfizer,
no, certainly
I think
not.
Pfizer gave up or almost gave up or has given up on its inhalant insulin.
Well, I think Pfizer commercialized inhaled insulin but gave up on the commercialization aspects because I just think that it was very fraught with inherent safety risks. I think, you know, delivering insulin to the lungs is not the smartest and safest way of delivering insulin.
So you haven't given up?
We are not, because I think this can bring about a paradigm shift in the way diabetes is managed. Because this is not just about, you know, getting people off injections, but this is also about giving some therapeutic benefits and advantages to diabetics, because, you know, there is the whole problem associated with insulin is hypoglycemia and weight gain. And one of the findings in this trial was that it does not have weight gain aspect. We've seen very, very minimal and not clinically relevant hypoglycemic events, which is really, really good news.
That's you know, what you're trying to do is a dream for most Indian promoters, whether it's you, whether Dr. Anji Reddy, whether it's Mr. Piramal, whether it's Mr. Patel, all of you. I think the dream is to come out with a drug that you've discovered and put it out into the market. We're not there as yet. Most of these companies have reached phase 3 of clinical trials, and there seems to be the biggest block. How difficult is it from there? And what's preventing Indian companies, the first Indian company, from coming out with a drug of its own?
Well, like you just said, you know, it's basically new to us. You know, basically innovation itself is a very new space for India and for Indian drug companies. And I think drug innovation is perhaps one of the toughest innovation spaces to be in.
Is it because of regulation? Is it because of the money? What is it?
Well, first and foremost, it's about regulation. I think the regulatory pathway is very, very tough and challenging. And that's the first.
Is it fairly tough, or is it unfairly tough?
It's very tough. It's very tough, and it's getting increasingly tough because I think, you know, there is a huge safety concern about drugs, and I think the risk-benefit ratio is skewed very negatively in terms of safety, and that's where the huge challenge is. Now, having said that, I also believe that India is at the sort of starting point of drug innovation, because we are seeing a few companies really pursue that innovation path, but as I said, it's not easy. Investments also then become quite high, and because there's high risk involved with that innovation, people are doing it very judiciously and cautiously. Secondly, I think we don't understand the economics of innovation in this country. So you don't have enough people backing innovation.
Okay, so it's all left to the large drug companies to get into innovation.
Not just that, I think large companies need to derive some of the seed innovation from smaller companies or from research labs, and that's not happening in India.
Why doesn't that happen?
That's not happening because I think the whole innovation ecosystem in India is not there as yet.
Okay.
The economics of innovation are not understood as yet. For instance, SEBI will not allow just innovation-led companies to access capital markets, because basically we have eligibility criteria that are based on earnings, and most innovation-led companies in the US, for instance, don't have earnings. They are loss-making companies because they are developing innovation, and they have investors who believe in that innovation.
Okay. You were particularly disappointed by the budget this year and the last year. So does it all flow from this? Then what were you expecting from the budget? Were you just expecting tax sops for research, or were you expecting budget to give a framework of how research companies can approach the markets?
Over the last several years, we have been trying to engage with the Ministry of Finance through the Department of Biotechnology to really make people understand that the whole biopharma, biotech space is a space that requires a lot of help and support from the government. Research and development is key and core to this sector. And R&D is expensive, and I think we needed far more support than just what they are giving right now, because there are many aspects of R&D which are not being covered under their weighted average tax systems. Secondly, as a pharmaceutical sector, we wanted far greater support from the government in terms of supporting innovative drugs, looking at how we can basically address the healthcare sector. See, India doesn't even have a system, and I think we need to start building towards that. So I think it was very disappointing.
Let's go back to something else you said just a little while ago. You said the Indian investor is not ready to accept innovation as an investable proposition. You often said that you are unhappy with the way Indian investors treat companies like yours. Tell us why.
Well, for instance, Biocon's market cap today is about its actual earnings.
Okay.
There is no value ascribed to our innovation pipeline. So I'm just saying that if you look at our market cap today, it does not reflect our innovation potential.
Okay, but isn't that true in the US as well? Because this is a complaint we hear from biotech companies even in an advanced market like the US.
No, but I think they do have a value ascribed to their innovation, and today you can see that the kind of deals that are being made where big pharma is acquiring small biotechs, and look at the kind of value ascribed to their innovation. It's quite lucrative.
Kiran, we'll take a break at this point. We'll come back and continue this conversation with Kiran Mazumdar right after this very short break. Back, we are at Biocon talking to Kiran Mazumdar, the founder, CEO, chairman and managing director of the company. Kiran, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's move, since you spoke about big pharma. Foreign big pharma is showing a lot of interest in India. We've got companies like Bristol Myers, you've got Merck, you've got Lilly, you've got Mylan, who you work with fairly closely. All of them have demonstrated varied levels of interest in India. Is that a challenge for you, or do you see that as an opportunity?
No, it's a huge opportunity. For Biocon, our whole business strategy in terms of making global impact has been about partnering.
Okay.
And I think we are very fortunate that we have partnerships with 3 major companies. Pfizer, of course, is a very big partner that we have for our biosimilar insulins. We have a very strong partnership with Mylan for biosimilar biologics. And then we have a very important research partnership with Bristol Myers Squibb. I think these alliances have actually helped us enormously.
Okay.
These companies, of course, look to India in many ways. In terms of all these companies that I mentioned, it was about our capability base, and it was our cost-effective capability base that was very interesting for them. But then most companies are also looking at India as a market opportunity.
Okay.
Now, India offers a large market opportunity for all these companies because we are the emerging market, the growth market, and I think people can't ignore us anymore.
Okay.
But having said that, India is also a very complex market. And at this point in time, it is not exactly a market that allows people to come in and dictate prices. It is a very cost competitive market.
Okay.
So from that point of view, I think for big pharma to look at this Indian opportunity, the best way for them to really take advantage of what India has to offer is by engaging with regional and local partners.
And what does an Indian company need to attract that foreign interest? Does it need to be just efficiency, or does it need pipelines? What does it need? A pipeline of products? Or?
Well, it requires a large number of things. It depends what the big pharma is looking for in the Indian partner. So from our point of view, they see us as a very strong research partner with very strong biomanufacturing capabilities. They look at us now as a company that is very focused on certain niche segments in the Indian market. So marketing strength, marketing infrastructure becomes very, very important. Mm-hmm. What is your marketing caliber in India? That also becomes very interesting. I think a large number of companies in India have started forging such partnerships.
How do you manage your alliances? Because you've got an alliance, as you said, with Mylan, which is a large generic company, and as you said, it's for monoclonal antibodies. And you have a tie-up with Pfizer for insulin. You're doing cutting-edge research there. So how do you are you wearing two hats? One of a generic, one as a
not really, because biosimilars is also a very strong research focus, because biosimilars are not the generic story. I think there's a huge difference between biosimilars and generic small molecules, because the whole development path is so different that biologics or biosimilars has almost a sort of a pathway that new molecules have to address, whereas ANDAs are a very different.
Okay, so you don't find it difficult balancing your partners?
Well, it's very important to have very strong partnerships, and I think we have very strong alliance management capabilities developing in Biocon, because each alliance requires a different dedicated set of resources to manage those alliances. So that's something which is very key if you want to build these kind of partnerships. So if partnering is your part of this model, mm-hmm. then these are the kind of things you have to put into place.
Okay. Let's just talk about the emerging biotech sector. When I talk to experts, they throw terms at me like targeted therapies, molecular diagnostics, theranostics. Are we on that curve? Tell us what this means in the first place, and is the Indian biotech industry on that curve?
Yes, I think there are a large number of companies now developing in all these kind of segments that you mentioned in the biopharma space.
Okay.
I think India has a very large opportunity. If you think about what you just talked about, diagnostics is a very large opportunity. And today, I think because biologics are expensive and because therapies based on biologics have a definite segmentation between people who respond and people who don't respond that well, you've got to have what are called as companion diagnostics.
Okay.
Because many of these biologics are also dependent on either gene mutations, or they're dependent on certain aspects of the targeted therapy. Now here, I think it's a great opportunity for Indian companies to develop companion diagnostics. Okay. For instance, we have a antibody under development which is an anti-CD6 monoclonal antibody called itolizumab. Now this is targeting CD6, okay, and so therefore that patients who overexpress CD6 will likely benefit much more than those who don't overexpress CD6. So how do you segregate those patients? That then calls for a new diagnostic, so that you make sure that the people who are spending those kinds of monies on this kind of therapies actually get the full benefit.
Okay.
That's what theranostics are about.
All right.
It means it's diagnostics which are therapies.
Okay. And how does traditional pharma look at biotechnology?
Well, you know, traditional pharma or small molecules basically have also looked at disease in terms of how it can, you know, improve on disease outcomes, of course, just the same way as biotech drugs do. The difference is that chemically derived drugs basically either stimulate the process or they have a impact on disease outcome in a slightly different way than what biologics do. Biologics basically mimic the body's own system in terms of dealing with disease. So that's where it becomes a little more kind of targeted.
Okay. So in the long run, if it mimics, are you saying that it can cure certain incurable diseases?
Absolutely. For instance, you know, insulin is a great example. You have small molecules like, you know, metformin or any of the other small molecule, anti-diabetic products. And they basically stimulate the pancreas to produce insulin, you know. Whereas if you look at insulin itself, which is a biologic or a biotech drug, insulin basically replenishes the body's deficiency for insulin. So you're actually just providing the body with insulin which it is deficient in. So that's where it's very clearly targeting the impact of a deficiency by just substituting it. You're not stimulating something.
Okay. Now, we spoke about partnerships with foreign companies. You gain size, you got large deals, you have a very steadily maturing pipeline. Does that make you an attractive target for MNCs?
Certainly, it's a very, very important asset base to have, and I think certainly companies do look at us, you know, in a very, very well in various ways. Yes, we are a very attractive opportunity for you know, acquisition opportunity for pharma or for companies. But having said that, I think because we are not interested in an M&A kind of arrangement, we then become very interesting partners.
Okay, and how, if I put you on the other side, because growth size seems to be becoming more and more important for generic companies. Teva, for instance, keeps on gobbling up companies. How does the landscape for acquisition look for you? Or do you have no time for that?
We as a company have opted for partnering at this phase of our growth. I don't think we want an M&A opportunity. We just, you know, did an M&A in Germany, as you know, a few years ago, and then we've exited from that company just a few months ago. The reason we did that was, of course, because we did this whole deal with Pfizer. Right. And before we did this deal with Pfizer, we wanted to actually have our own footprint in Europe. But after the Pfizer deal, it didn't make that much sense. Also, I think Germany is becoming a very challenging market. In terms of its own healthcare reforms, where it's come down very heavily on drug pricing.
Okay. When I started, I rather presumptuously said that most of you have started with this dream of bringing a molecule to the market. But I didn't ask you what your dream was when you started this company. What was it, and do you think you've achieved that?
Well, you know, my dream when I started the company was all about enzyme technologies. Today, my dream is about bringing drug innovation to global markets. So obviously, I also now have that dream that, you know, I would love to take a product developed in India with a made in India label to global markets that benefit a huge number of patients, that becomes an important therapy or a medication. So obviously, that's my dream as well. Okay. I think all of us dream that for India.
Well, good luck with the dream, Kiran. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Senthil.